The video for lesson 2, and last time as we covered where clause, so I'm going to just continue from there. Today mostly what I'm going to do is adding inquiries, adding, subtracting, multiplication and division, so you do not have to do it separately. So in queries you can do addition, subtraction, and division and multiplication. So there are all kinds of formulas that you can use. So let's just get started so you can get an idea. Uh, Let me show you which table I'm going to use. Select from sales order header. So this table I'm going to use, this has some numbers that I will need to add or subtract. These are the numbers I'm looking for: subtotal, tax amount, freight, and total due. So for me to do subtotal plus freight as total due. So this is another operator that you use to name the table, and what I just did is I took subtotal column and added the freight column, and I said name it as total due. So when I run it, I get an error. Let's see why. Okay, so the space is the problem. So by doing that, I can get total due amount, which is the subtotal amount and the freight, and I can always change the name by doing little things here. So let's move on to the next query that I'm going to do. This will be the where operator again. So where total due minus, use space again, so tax amount minus rate. Since I have the formula written down, I do not need a formula up here. I just need all the tables. I'm looking for all the tables. So what this means is that select all the data from sales order header, but where you have total due minus tax amount and freight in subtotal. So the subtotal amount is going to change immediately when I'm going to run this query. Okay, so let's see here. So the subtotal amount is different now from what it was. I can show you by running this query separately. Select from. Okay, so this is my second query that I just ran with all the numbers. So this just gives me the same amount. I'm trying to see where this goes different. Anyway, so what this has done is where total amount, total due and tax amount are subtracted, and that would have given me uh, the subtotal, and I'm not seeing that here. So what this means is that the SQL minus operator is used to subtract one expression or number from another expression. The filter result uh, set based on condition which subtracts subtotal from tax amount from freight that equals subtotal in where clause. So it should give me, I'm trying to see. Anyways, I can come back to this one after we're done with all the queries. So let me just move on to the, I'm just gonna comment this one out and move on. So very quickly I'm gonna use another one which will be unit price times order quantity, and this time I'm using purchase order table, purchase order detail table. And I do not need a where clause in this case because I have the formula up there, and I'm going to run this and it will just give me the unit price times order quantity, and I can always name this total amount. Here it is. I can do division also very quickly. I'm gonna do unit price times 5 divided by 100, and then this is my commission. Okay, so what this will do is give me unit price and unit price times 5 divided by 100. So here I get the commission. So let me just write down up on top what I have done so far. I have done plus operator, minus operator, division operator, multiplication operator, and now I'm going to do between operator. So I'm going to look for all the values that are between a certain amount. In this, for between operator, I'm going to use product vendor table, which is here, and I'm gonna try to find product ID, vendor ID, standard price, and I'm going to use where product ID equals 317 and standard price is greater than or equal to 24. So all the values that are sorry, this is the AND operator, so I'm going to come back to between. So all the product IDs that are 317 and the standard price is greater than or equal to 24. So all the product ID that has 317 and the value is greater. So let's see what's going on here. Okay, so I get product ID and standard price that are only greater than 28, 24, and then product ID is 317. So I can run many different operators in where clause. And to give you another example of how many I can do is I'm going to do 317. I'm going to do OR operator now. OR operator. OR product ID equals 318. Okay. And I'm going to do standard price. I'm going to leave it right there. Let's see if it works. So I get product ID either 317 or 318, but the price has to be greater than 24. And I get both the product IDs here, 317 and 318. So as you can see, I just used two different operators in one where clause. So you can use multiple operators in one clause to filter more and more data. So let's just do an in operator. Let me just delete that for now. And then in operator is all about where everything falls under product ID in certain amount, so certain ID. So I'm going to do product ID in 317 or 18. So I do not need all this information. I need just a comma. Run this, and then I get all the values that are 317 and 318. I can also negate this and say all the values that are not in 317 and 318, show me those values. And this gives me all those values that are not in 317 and 318. So now I'm going to do a totally different operator, which is like. We use this as wildcard. We call it wildcard. We use percentage sign. The sign is here. We use this to search a figure or a value that is nearby a certain value. So I'm going to use product table to find product ID and name, list price. So I'm gonna do product ID. I'm gonna do name. So I'm gonna use a string operator. So what this means, this is a string value, but it has to be exact, but somewhere near that value. So what I'm doing is I'm saying where name is like. So I'm just gonna do like, name like, and ML Turing. This is a name is already in the table, and I'm just saying that search me a name that has a value ML Turing, but we do not know what's after this. What is after ML Turing? So anything that is after ML Turing will also come, but I need a value that has ML Turing in it. So let's see. Okay, so ML2 ring, I get all the values with ML2 ring, but there is saddle and seat assembly with it. Uh, so I can do wildcard operator to search a value that is, I do not know exact, but it is pretty nearby. If I use the wildcard before this uh, string value, then I get a totally different result because these are the first letters of the name. Then I and there's nothing after uh, the everything after is pretty uh, vague, or it's not exact. Uh, so I do not find anything. So so the percentage specifies to return any specific characters before the value ML Turing. Um, so so let's do another one where I am going to do M and L. So what I'm saying here, that any value that has M and L nearby, I need that values. Uh, so so all the values that have M and L, it displays me all those values here. So this means that select uses one wildcard in between the letters M and L. The select statement returns all the records that begins with M and ends with L. So I get all these values here. I can do something that is very exact. So all the values that have an operator, but for that it almost works as a quotation mark, the percentage value. So if I do percentage and put in the value that I'm actually looking for exactly, that has to be an, and then I get all these values that have an all over there. So it comes pretty handy when you know some values but you do not know exact. I can also use this as something like L Turing. So in this case I do not know what the first name is, but I know the letter. The first name ends with L, and I know the last name. So I would like all the values that have L and uh, last name Turing. So let's see if I can find that. So I get a value L and Turing, HL, all the L's were Turings. So see, so the wildcard operator can be extremely useful if you know something that you do not know, something a little bit about, but do not know have an exact value. Sorry. Okay, so let's do one more, and then I'm gonna move on to the next topic. Let's see, HL, and this one is, I'm gonna do HL with. So this one gives me a value whose name starts with L, with H or L. So I get all these values with H or L. So these are important things to remember that I just did. All the wildcard, where do you place it, and how do you place it. Um, next thing I'm going to show you is how to use basically space, and how to use vendor name and vendor amount number and place parentheses around it. This is used to combine the column values. So So when you have two different values and you want to place it in one column, I'm gonna do this vendor table in this case, and name plus account number. There has to be space between plus and the name. So in this table you have account number and name in this table already. So what I'm doing is just putting name and uh, account number in one column. So I can always, as it says no column, I can change the name of the table, name and account number. I don't know if it will let me use and. No, it will not use me. Okay, so I have name and account number in one column. Earlier they were two different columns, so I just used string value here too, and parentheses, um, and then string value plus account number, uh, and then there has to be a, a space between a plus sign and the value that I'm using. I can always give this a space. So let's just say that because I feel it's too tight, I can spread this out too. I can do that by adding space in between the parentheses and the string value. And as you can see, there is space coming up here. I can do this and spread this out a little bit more. Okay, so this is adding two different column values into one. And let's just move on to the next thing. I can always make this uppercase or lowercase. So let's say if I would like uppercase uh, name, I want to be uppercase, then I can do upper name. It has to be in parentheses or it will not work. Now all the values with name are in all caps. They're all uppercase. I can also lower them by typing lower case and execute, and it gives me all the values with lowercase. This I can remove for this example. I do not need, so I can do upper lower by just typing and putting the column name in parentheses. Moving on, I'm gonna do one more. You saw this table, and if you were paying attention in those values, you would have seen that this value was not intended to the left completely, but it just looked very odd. So this value, Gustavo, there's so much space right there, so I can correct that by typing R trim. So what this means is that trim to the right, or trim to the left. There is one for trim to the left, which is L trim right there, and I need to put these values in parentheses also to make sure that the SQL server understands which values I'm trying to trim. So when I do that, it goes back to normal again, and as you can see, the first name and last name are all trimmed. And now I can always change these values to R trim also, which means that trim it to the right. So Let's do that, and I get the value which was back to the way it was. mm. And let me just do rtrim for the last name to give you a pretty good idea. So because it's already trimmed, I guess it's not gonna show. It does not make much difference. So all it does is remove the space on the left side or the right side just to make the data more clear and easier to read. Um, so this one is a little bit more uh, different. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna try this. Let's see what this does. Left, left trim, and then right trim. First name. So you have to make sure that you close the parentheses accordingly. You have to, when you open them, you have to close them, or else it will not work again. So what this does is uh, it removes space from left and right of a string value using the ltrim and rtrim function. So both of them will correct left spaces and right spaces. Since they're all normal, it does not make any difference at the moment. So let's say that if I would like a value that is um, uh, let's say if you want something more into, you want today's date, or um, you can do select function and 21. What is today? It is, let's say it's 21. Column name, which is whatever. So my bad, this is so let's just say that you would like today's date. You can just do get date. This is get date function, and I get today's date. So that is a very simple uh, query. You usually use this for um, many different things. You might want to insert something, a date, in a column, and you would like it to be permanently there every time you run it, uh, because it updates the date every time it runs it. So you would see the date every day every time you have run it. So copying and pasting it into Excel makes it very easy. Uh, so this is a very simple, another simple query that I'm gonna write. It just says that purchase, to give you an example of the date function. So since there is a date, purchase order date, I can always add a due date to this. So for me to add today's date, I have to do date, and then add, date add. And then I would enter the format of how I would like. It could be day and 21, due date as new due date. I'm just going to name this as new due date. So what this has done is added 21 days to the due date column. So as you can see here, it was on the 31st. I got uh, June 21st. I can change the new due date by just adding the number of days I would like to be changed to. So this select statement is not a whole lot used, but it is quite sometimes important if you are dealing with orders and if you are working with specifically products that require a specific date to be processed or things like that. But it is a good function to know if you are studying SQL. So let's just say that you are doing something more in the ends of uh, converting characters into dates and so for that you do so if you want to convert higher date into a different format, convert character 12. So what this does is uh, it is used to manipulate or change date. uh, so what I'm going to do, convert character 12 due date 101 as due date, and then I'm going to do date name month due date as month name. So this gives me uh, a value that uh, is an example of a function that returns a character string representing a specific part or specific date. And this, the one that I just did, is a statement syntax used to get the month name from a specified date. So this basically gives me the month right next to the due date. This again a statement that is not very frequently used, but it is kind of good to know when you are learning SQL from A to Z. Um, so these are all the SQL queries that I wanted you to go over today. And this has been lesson 2. I hope you enjoyed it and found it useful. Please let me know if you have any questions about this. I'll be more than happy to help you. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.